At this age, I've learned something I never truly believed when I was young. Nothing in this life stays the same. Everything around us is constantly shifting quietly, steadily, sometimes fast, sometimes so softly that we only notice it once it's already gone. Our bodies change. The people we love change. The way we see the world, the way we see ourselves. All of it transforms over time. And if you're anything like me, you've probably had moments where you look in the mirror and wonder, who is this person? Why do they look so different from the version of me I still carry inside my mind? That's impermanence touching us, not to frighten us, but to remind us that everything that passes is part of the natural path we're walking. When we're younger, we think we can hold on to everything. Our health, our roles, the people we love, even old versions of ourselves. But life gently teaches us sometimes with a little sting that clinging to what has already changed is the first source of suffering. And here's the strange thing. When we stop fighting that truth, when we stop comparing today to yesterday, another door opens, a softer one, a door to real lightness, a kind of peace you can only understand later in life. I often tell friends my age, impermanence isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. It invites us to love the present more deeply, to appreciate the small moments we once overlooked. The morning sunlight, someone's laughter, a genuine conversation. Even this aging body, no longer as strong as before, but still faithfully carrying us through every day. When you accept change, you're not giving up. You're simply choosing to live in harmony with the most natural law of the universe. It's like the season: spring arrives, then leaves. Summer blooms, then steps aside for fall. Winter rests so life can begin again. No season is wrong. No season fails. Each is doing exactly what it was meant to do. And so are we. At this stage of life, you don't need to hold everything together. You just need to hold on to awareness, presence, and gratitude for the moments you still have. When you loosen your grip, life softens. Impermanence doesn't take your peace away. It reveals the path to the peace you've been searching for. As we get older, something shifts inside us. We no longer crave excitement. We crave peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from sitting in a quiet room, but the kind that settles gently in the chest. The peace of not having to brace ourselves before every phone call, every family gathering, every conversation that feels like walking on thin ice. Yet many of us, especially past the age of 50, still carry people in our lives who bring us more anxiety than comfort. And sometimes, let's be honest, those people are the ones we once felt obligated to love. I've worked with older adults for decades, and there's a silent belief many of us hold. If they're family, I must endure them. But let me tell you something from my heart: love and loyalty do not mean sacrificing your peace. Peace is not selfish. Peace is a form of wisdom. There's an old Buddhist story I think about often. A monk named Tissa kept writing letters to his brother, even though every reply was filled with anger and cruelty. When his teacher asked why, Tissa whispered, "But he is my blood. I must endure him." The teacher pointed to a bamboo stalk that had fallen from the tree. "It once belonged here," he said, "but the tree does not mourn its absence. It continues to grow." That story stays with me because so many of us carry branches that no longer belong to our tree. Letting go doesn't require anger. It doesn't require a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it simply means gently stepping back from what harms your spirit. I once sat with an 82-year-old woman named Clara at a tea meditation. She told me she attended Sunday dinners with her eldest son for years, even though every dinner ended in tears. "But he's my son," she said, her voice cracking. "What kind of mother walks away?" The next week she didn't go. She stayed home, sat on her porch, sipped jasmine tea, and listened to the breeze. Later she told me it was the first time in years that I felt like I could breathe. Letting go of toxic relationships is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. It is choosing an environment where your nervous system can finally unclench. It is remembering that at this stage of life, you've earned the right to feel safe emotionally and spiritually. You don't have to hate anyone. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain. You can love people from a distance. You can wish them well and still protect your peace. Because the truth is simple. If a relationship constantly costs you your peace, it is too expensive. And peace at this age is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. There's something almost magical that happens when we learn to return to the present moment. Not the past we keep replaying, not the future we keep worrying about, but this moment right here, breathing with us. You see, when we're younger, we spend so much time rushing toward the next thing, the next goal, the next responsibility, the next version of ourselves we hope will finally feel enough. But somewhere after 50 or 60, life begins whispering a different message. It invites us to slow down, to notice, to simply be here. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." And the older I get, the more I realize how profoundly true that is. Because in the present moment, there is no old age. Think about it. When you're fully here, feeling the warmth of your cup of tea, listening to the sound of morning birds, watching sunlight stretch across your living room floor, you're not old. You're simply alive. Age exists only when the mind drifts away into memories of who you used to be or fears about who you may become. But in presence, there is no used to be and no what if. There is just breath, just awareness, just life unfolding one heartbeat at a time. I once met a meditation teacher who said something that changed me forever. He told me impermanence was only an idea until I became ill. Only then did I understand that everything disappears. But in each breath, there is a new beginning. A new beginning. At our age, that's a truth many people forget. We think new chances are behind us, but every morning you wake up, that is a new chance. Every breath is a doorway back to your life. Presence doesn't mean you have to force gratitude or pretend that everything is perfect. It simply means allowing each moment to exist without judgment, without rushing through it or wishing it away. When you walk, just walk. When you eat, truly taste your food. When you sit down, allow yourself to simply sit without planning the next hour. Life isn't asking you to be productive right now. It's asking you to be present. And here's the beautiful part. When you learn to be here in this breath, in this body, in this moment, time softens. The edges of fear soften. And for just a heartbeat, you feel timeless. Living in the present isn't about escaping aging. It's about discovering a deeper layer of life, one that youth is often too busy to notice. Right here, right now, in this simple moment, you are not defined by your past and not limited by your age. You are simply a human being breathing awarely. And that is more than enough. You know, one of the quiet blessings of growing older is that life finally becomes simple enough for us to notice the things that truly matter. Not the big achievements, not the applause, not the milestones we chased for decades, but the small, almost invisible moments that were always there waiting for us to slow down long enough to see them. Gratitude at this age feels different. It's softer, it's deeper. It's less about counting your blessings and more about realizing I didn't need as much as I thought I did. When I talk to people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they often tell me the same thing. The older I get, the smaller my joys become, and the more precious they feel. A warm cup of tea, the sound of rain on the porch, a phone call from someone who still remembers your voice, a good night of sleep, a morning without pain, a sunset seen without rushing anywhere. These moments used to slip right past us when we were younger. drowned out by urgency, ambition, and the constant feeling that happiness was somewhere in the future. But aging teaches us a profound truth. Joy was never hiding in the extraordinary. It was always quietly blooming in the ordinary. There's a Buddhist word for this kind of happiness, sukha, a deep, steady joy that comes not from excitement, but from contentment. Excitement depends on circumstances. Contentment depends on awareness. That's why gratitude is such a powerful spiritual practice in the later years of life. It shifts the mind from scarcity to abundance. It takes what we already have and makes it enough. I once heard an older woman in a meditation class say with tears in her eyes, "I never knew how grateful I was for my eyes until the doctor told me I might lose some of my vision." Her words stayed with me, not because they were sad, but because they were true. We spend so many years overlooking what is precious simply because it has always been there. So here's a simple practice I often recommend. Each night before you sleep, recall 3 small things that brought you a moment of ease or joy. Not big things, small ones. The taste of breakfast, the kindness of a stranger, a soft breeze through the window. This trains the mind to see life as a gift, not a burden. And when you open your eyes each morning, instead of saying another day, try whispering, "I have been given another day." At this stage of life, your worth isn't measured by productivity or achievements. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone. You are contributing simply by being present, by being kind, by being aware. A grateful heart doesn't need more time. It simply uses the time it has left beautifully, because in the end, the small joys were never small at all. There's a kind of silence you only come to appreciate later in life, not the silence of an empty room, not the silence of being alone, but a deeper silence, the kind that gently gathers around your heart when the world stops demanding so much from you. When we're young, solitude can feel frightening. We run from it, fill every moment, distract ourselves with noise, movement, and company. But somewhere past 50 or 60, something in us softens. We stop chasing. We stop performing. And suddenly, silence begins to feel like home. I've spent countless hours sitting with older adults, and they often tell me, "I don't fear being alone. I fear being overwhelmed." And I always say the same thing: solitude doesn't overwhelm you. It reveals you. In Buddhism, silence is considered a form of wisdom. The Buddha himself often taught not with words, but with silence, a silence so full, so alive that it spoke louder than language ever could. There are 3 kinds of solitude: the solitude of the body, the solitude of the mind, and the solitude of the awakened heart. And if you've lived long enough, you've touched all 3, whether you realized it or not. The solitude of the body is simply being physically alone. For many older adults, this becomes more common, sometimes not by choice. But the solitude of the mind, that's something different. It's when you can sit with yourself without fear, without restlessness, without needing the world to distract you from your own thoughts. And then there is the deepest solitude, the solitude of the awakened heart. That is when you feel completely connected to life, even when no one else is in the room. I once spoke with a widower in his 70s who told me, "After my wife passed, the house felt painfully quiet. But after a year of learning to sit with that quiet, it began to feel like a presence, like the silence itself was holding me." That is the miracle of solitude. It transforms from emptiness to companionship, from loneliness to clarity, if you give it a chance. Set aside 10 minutes a day for stillness. Turn off the TV. Put down the phone. Sit by a window or on your porch. Let the world be the world, and let yourself simply be. You don't have to meditate perfectly. You don't have to silence your thoughts. Just offer yourself a moment where nothing is demanded of you. Because in that silence, you'll hear something precious, the soft return of your own spirit. Stillness is not an escape, it's a reunion. A reunion with the parts of yourself you were too busy to hear for most of your life. And solitude, when embraced with awareness, is not loneliness, it is freedom. It is spaciousness. It is the quiet doorway to the peace you've been seeking all along. There comes a moment in life, usually somewhere after 60, when you look at your reflection and realize your body is telling a different story than it once did. The lines on your face, the slower steps, the stiffness in the morning, all the little reminders that time has been quietly shaping you. And for many people, this moment brings a kind of sadness, a sense of loss, a fear that the body is no longer yours. But I want to tell you something I've learned after decades of sitting with older adults, listening to their worries and their wisdom. Your aging body is not failing you. It's speaking to you. It's inviting you to a new relationship, one built on compassion instead of criticism. When we're younger, we treat our bodies like machines, pushing them, ignoring them, getting frustrated when they don't perform at full speed. But as we grow older, the body becomes a teacher. It asks us to slow down, to listen, to soften, to finally offer it the kindness it always deserved. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about the two arrows. The first arrow is physical pain, something none of us can avoid. The second arrow is the suffering we create by resisting that pain, by saying, "Why me? Why now? This shouldn't be happening." And often the second arrow hurts far more than the first. Through mindfulness, we learn that we don't have to shoot that second arrow. We can feel the stiffness without adding fear. We can feel the aches without adding shame. We can feel the slowing down without believing it makes us less worthy. Because the beautiful truth is this: your body has carried you through every chapter of your life. It deserves gratitude, not judgment. Every scar holds a memory. Every wrinkle is a reminder that you've lived. Every gray hair is a lesson learned. This body, imperfect, changing, fragile, is the very reason you're able to hug someone, laugh with someone, or simply sit here listening to these words. I once asked an older man what helped him accept his aging body. He said, "When I stopped asking my body to be young, it finally stopped disappointing me." There is profound wisdom in that. You don't need to fight your body anymore. You don't need to compare it to your past self. You don't need to see aging as an enemy. Try placing a hand on your chest for a moment. Feel the heart still beating steady, loyal, faithful. This heart has never given up on you. Why give up on it? Be gentle with yourself. Move a little slower. Rest when you need to. Speak kindly to the parts of you that ache. Offer your body the same compassion you've spent years offering others. Loving your aging body isn't about pretending everything feels perfect. It's about saying, "I'm still here. And this body, just as it is enough for this moment." And that simple acceptance, that soft, tender yes, is one of the deepest acts of self-love you'll ever practice. There's a conversation many people avoid, especially as they grow older. A conversation about death. Not because it's dark, but because it's honest. Because it asks us to look directly at the one truth every human shares, yet few dare to embrace. But here's what decades of spiritual practice have taught me. When we turn toward the reality of death, we don't become frightened, we become awake. In Buddhism, there is a practice called Marana Sati, mindfulness of death. It doesn't ask us to dwell on fear or tragedy. It asks us to remember that life is fragile, temporary, and profoundly precious, so we don't waste a single moment of it. When I first learned this practice in my 20s, it felt too heavy. But at 60, I finally understand. I've lost friends, I've lost family. And with each loss, life has whispered a quiet truth to me. The more clearly you see death, the more deeply you live. I once had a student, an 81-year-old man with gentle eyes. He told me I used to fear dying, but now I fear reaching the end and realizing I never truly lived. Those words stayed with me for years. Death awareness isn't about obsessing, it's about prioritizing. It's about making space for what actually matters, the people you love, the conversations that nourish you, the small joys that give your days meaning. Thich Nhat Hanh once said something beautiful. A cloud never dies. It becomes rain or snow or mist, but it never becomes nothing. And that's why reflecting on death doesn't make life smaller. It makes it larger. It frees us from the illusion that we have endless time. It frees us from postponing joy. It frees us from holding grudges that have been heavy for far too long. Here's a simple truth. Avoiding the thought of death doesn't protect us from it. It only keeps us from appreciating the life that's still here. I often ask my listeners to try a gentle practice. Once a day, whisper to yourself, I do not know how many days I have left. Not with fear, but with tenderness. Because when you remember that time is finite, suddenly the world becomes vivid again, the colors brighter, the people dearer, the moments richer. You stop postponing forgiveness. You stop waiting for the right time to rest or smile or call someone you miss. You start living now, in this breath, in this body, in this fleeting but beautiful moment. Death awareness is not morbid. It's liberating. It teaches us to let go of trivial worries, to soften our hearts, and to cherish each day as if it were a rare gift, because it is. And when the day comes for us to leave this world, if we've lived with presence, kindness, and courage, we won't leave with fear. We'll leave with gratitude. There's a quiet secret I've learned after 6 decades of living, and it's this. The moment you believe you've seen it all, your heart begins to close, not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. We think growing older means we've finished learning, finished evolving, finished discovering, but the truth is far more beautiful. In Buddhism, there's a concept called Shoshin, the beginner's mind. It means meeting each moment as if you were seeing it for the very first time, with curiosity, with openness, with wonder. And let me tell you something, at this age, that mindset is not only possible, it's essential. I once met an elderly monk in California who was in his late 80s. Every morning he would bow before a simple wooden altar and recite one line of scripture as if he had never heard it before. One day, a younger student asked him, "Master, why do you practice like a beginner?" The old monk smiled and said, "Because the beginner sees the world with wonder. The expert only sees what he expects." That sentence stayed with me, because as we age, routines harden. The mind becomes predictable. Curiosity fades, not because we no longer desire it, but because we assume the world has nothing new left to offer. But what if that belief is quietly stealing your joy? I've worked with older adults for decades, and I've seen incredible things. Men learning to paint at 70, women discovering meditation at 75. A dear friend of mine at 79 learning to play the ukulele. Not because they needed these skills, but because something inside them whispered, "Let's see what else life can show me." When we allow ourselves to be beginners again, something miraculous happens. Life expands, the mind softens, and the heart, so heavy from years of responsibilities and expectations, begins to feel light again. The lotus flower, one of Buddhism's most sacred symbols, grows from mud, not from clean water. And yet it rises petal by petal toward the sun. Similarly, your mind can bloom no matter your age, not despite the mud of life, but because of it. So let me ask you gently, when was the last time you let your mind stretch? Not towards something productive or impressive, but towards something that stirs your spirit. A poem, a question, a new idea. a new way of seeing something you believed you already understood. The beginner's mind isn't childish, it's courageous. It says, I may be older, but I am not done living. I am not done discovering. I am not done becoming. At this stage of life, you don't need more certainty. You need more wonder, more gentle curiosity, more moments of looking at the world, not with the eyes of age, but with the eyes of possibility. Because the truth is simple, you are never too old to begin again. And beginning again might be the very thing that keeps your spirit young. There's a moment in life, usually sometime after we've lived through enough storms, when we finally begin to understand a truth we once resisted with every fiber of our being. We were never really in control. Not of people, not of outcomes, not of the timing of things, not even of our own emotions, at least not all the time. Yet for decades we try so hard to manage everything, to fix everything, to hold everything together as if the world might crumble without our grip. But eventually life humbles us, not cruelly but gently. It shows us that all our tightness, all our worry, all our attempts to force life into our expectation were never the path to peace. I've seen this again and again with the older adults I work with. There's a deep exhaustion they carry, not from aging, but from years of trying to control what was never theirs to control. And you know what they tell me most often? I wish I'd relaxed sooner. I wish I had trusted more. I wish I hadn't tried so hard to make things go my way. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is opening up to life as it is, not as we demand it to be. There's a Buddhist teaching that says, whatever you cling to becomes your suffering. And it's true. We cling to certainty. We cling to how people should act. We cling to our identities, routines, relationships, even regrets. And the tighter we hold on, the more life pushes back. But something beautiful happens when you soften, when you stop wrestling with what is, when you finally whisper to yourself, I'm going to trust the flow of things, even if I don't understand it yet. Suddenly the world doesn't feel so heavy. Suddenly the heart breathes. Suddenly there's room for joy to slip back in. I once knew a man in his 70s who always tried to control everything, his family, his schedule, even the weather forecasts, as if worrying could stop the rain. But after a health scare, he told me, when I realized I'm not steering the whole universe, I finally felt free. That's the strange and wonderful thing. Freedom doesn't come from controlling more, but from needing less control. Letting go doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming aligned with reality, with impermanence, with the natural rhythm of life. And trusting the flow doesn't mean everything becomes perfect. It means you stop fighting life long enough to experience its grace. So here's a question for you, spoken gently from one aging soul to another. What would your life feel like if you loosened your grip by just 10%? What would soften? What would ease? What joy might return? You don't have to surrender everything today. Just breathe. Just trust a little more. Just let the river of life carry you not away, but forward. Because when you stop trying to control the current, you finally learn how to float. There's a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or degrees or success. It comes from living, from loving and losing, from failing and rising again, from watching time soften the sharp edges of your heart. And if there's one gift that growing older gives us, one that younger people rarely understand, it is emotional wisdom. You see, emotional wisdom isn't about never getting upset. It isn't about pretending to be calm or forcing yourself to stay positive. It's knowing how to meet your emotions gently without letting them rule your life. When we're young, emotions feel like storms. We get pulled into every argument, every slight, every disappointment. We think we need to react to everything the moment it happens. But as we age, something remarkable happens. We start to see emotions for what they truly are. Temporary visitors, passing weather, experiences, not identities. I once asked an older woman in my meditation group what aging had taught her about emotions. She smiled and said, "Now when anger knocks on my door, I say, 'Come in, but don't stay too long.' That, my friend, is emotional wisdom. At this stage of life, you've lived long enough to know not every opinion deserves a response. Not every conflict is worth entering. Not every emotion needs to be believed. And not every sadness means something is wrong." You begin to understand the difference between feeling something and becoming consumed by it. You learn to pause before reacting. You learn to forgive faster. You learn to choose peace over being right. And maybe most importantly, you learn that your own heart deserves the same patience you've spent years giving to others. Emotional wisdom also means recognizing that sensitivity is not weakness. It means embracing your softer side, the part of you that feels deeply, cares deeply, loves deeply. Because that depth is not a burden. It is the richness of a life fully lived. There's a saying I often tell my students: you are not responsible for the first emotion, but you are responsible for the second. The first emotion is instinct, the second is choice. And with age comes the ability to choose wisely. You begin to choose compassion instead of bitterness, understanding instead of judgment, patience instead of frustration, grace instead of resentment. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens because the years have shaped you not into someone harder, but into someone softer in a stronger way. So let me say this clearly. If you've grown gentler with age, if you cry a little easier, if you forgive a little quicker, if you feel things more deeply, that is not decline. That is maturity. That is emotional intelligence earned through decades of living. Your emotional wisdom is your legacy. It's what you pass on through your presence, your tone, your kindness, your calm. And the world, especially the younger generation, needs that wisdom now more than ever. There comes a season in life, a season many of us enter without even noticing, when being alone becomes more common than ever before. Not because we chose it, but because life in its quiet way rearranges everything around us. Children grow up and build lives of their own. Friends move across states, across countries, or into chapters where paths don't cross as often. Loved ones fall ill or pass on, and suddenly the home that once held laughter, footsteps, conversations, arguments, celebrations, begins to settle into a stillness we're not always prepared for. If you're listening to this and nodding, I want you to know something. Being alone is part of the human journey, but feeling lonely doesn't have to be. Loneliness is a feeling, a perception, a sense of separation. Being alone, on the other hand, is simply a circumstance. And the most beautiful truth, circumstances don't have to define your emotional world. For most of our lives, we've been conditioned to believe that being alone is something to fear. We associate solitude with sadness, rejection, or a lack of importance. Who am I if no one is here with me? Do I still matter? Am I still needed? These questions haunt many hearts in later life. But here is what aging has taught me, slowly, gently, profoundly. You do not lose your value when the room becomes quiet. You do not stop being loved when the phone stops ringing. And you do not disappear simply because life gives you more space. In fact, sometimes the space life gives you is finally big enough for you to step into. You see, most people spend the early decades of life running away from themselves. They fill every moment with noise, movement, tasks, commitments, entertainment. Not because they're busy, but because solitude is confronting. Sitting alone forces you to hear your own thoughts. It forces you to acknowledge your emotions. It forces you to meet the parts of yourself you've ignored for years. And when you don't know how to be with yourself the moment you are alone, the mind cries out, "This feels wrong. This feels empty. This must be loneliness." But that's not loneliness, that's unfamiliarity. You're not afraid of being alone, you're afraid of meeting yourself honestly, maybe for the first time. The older I've grown, the more I realize something powerful. Solitude is not a punishment, it's an invitation into the deepest rooms of your own soul. Rooms you never had time to visit. Rooms filled with stories, forgotten dreams buried, pain unexpressed, creativity, unhealed memories, and unspoken truths. Rooms filled with the most authentic version of you. I once sat with an elderly man who had recently lost his wife. For months, the silence of his home felt unbearable. He said I would sit in the living room and the quiet sounded like grief. But over time, as he started taking slow walks, drinking tea on the porch, reading poetry aloud to an empty room, something shifted. One day he told me, the silence still reminds me of her, but now it feels like she sits with me in it. That is the magic of solitude. It transforms, it softens, it becomes a companion instead of an enemy. To be alone without feeling lonely, you have to learn how to befriend your own presence, not tolerate it, not distract from it, but truly befriend it. Ask yourself gently, do I enjoy my own company? Do I speak kindly to myself? Do I treat myself as someone worth spending time with? Because here's a truth most people never realize until later in life. It's not the absence of others that makes us lonely. It's the absence of ourselves. When you abandon your own heart, no amount of company can fill the void. But when you return to yourself, even a quiet room feels full. In Buddhism, solitude is not something to avoid, it's something to honor. The Buddha taught that solitude reveals what noise hides: clarity, truth, peace, self-understanding, compassion, acceptance. When you sit alone, not to escape, not to sulk, but to be, you begin to meet yourself in a way you never have before. You listen to your own breath, you listen to your body's needs, you listen to the gentle aches, not just physical but emotional. You listen to your memories, not to relive them, but to understand them. You listen to your desires, subtle, quiet, long ignored. And slowly the parts of your soul that were scattered across decades begin to gather together. If you want to stop feeling lonely in solitude, start with 10 minutes a day. Sit by a window, turn off the phone, the TV, the notifications, the noise. Place a hand on your chest and say, I'm here. And that's enough. Not as a mantra you force, but as a reminder of your own existence. During those 10 minutes, let your thoughts wander. Let your emotions arise. Let your breath guide you. Let yourself be without judgment. This is how you build a relationship with yourself, gently, consistently, compassionately. Something beautiful happens when you stop fearing solitude. You reclaim your power. You stop relying on others to validate your worth. You stop craving external noise to numb internal discomfort. You stop seeing alone time as a void to fill and start seeing it as a sanctuary to enter. Suddenly, a quiet morning feels peaceful instead of empty. A slow evening feels reflective instead of sad. A meal for one feels nourishing instead of lonely. A solo walk feels refreshing instead of isolating. You realize perhaps for the first time that your presence is enough. Your thoughts have value. Your inner world is rich. Your heart has depth. And you understand why many spiritual teachers spend years in solitude. Solitude is where the soul remembers itself. You become free the moment you learn to enjoy your own company. You become peaceful the moment you stop needing the world to keep you company. A person who knows how to be alone is a person who has touched true spiritual maturity. not because they reject connection, but because they no longer depend on it for survival. They can love without clinging. They can grieve without collapsing. They can sit with themselves without running away. They can listen to their own breath and recognize it as a friend. And in that freedom, something profound awakens: self-love, self-respect, self-trust, self-peace. This is the heart of knowing how to be alone without being lonely. A closing thought. If you're in a season of life where you find yourself alone more often than before, I invite you to look at it not as a loss, but as a return. A return to your own spirit, a return to your own truth, a return to the quiet wisdom you've carried for decades. Because the older we get, the more we realize it was never the presence of others that made life meaningful. It was the presence of our own awakened heart. And when you have that, you are never truly alone.